Albert Einstein said, "Time is an illusion." And a lot of physicists have agreed with him. But okay, so if time is an illusion, yet we are living in a world where currently everything exists around time, what do we actually need to do in order for us to basically live in the reality where we actually enjoy it and we have essentially no limitations? What we need to do is transcend this realm. We need to think and go to the realm where time doesn't exist, and that is the spiritual realm. So if time doesn't exist and essentially everything is basically done, now is the time. What do we need to do in order for us to live in our desired reality now and for the rest of our lives that we actually want to be living in that reality? We need to think and live from that reality that you desire to live in. How you see yourself in whatever you like and want to be, you need to be that now. Because if time doesn't exist, what are you waiting for? There's nothing to wait for.
There isn't anything to wait for, although maybe this viewer or viewees are thinking that time exists, and that's the reality because you've been programmed, and there's nothing wrong with unprogramming yourself from this lie, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
God did say now is the time. A lot of us want to say, yeah, all in God's timing, but when you really think about what you've just said, you basically taking away your power and giving it to something other than God. Because if God has said now is the time, he doesn't contradict himself. He's not a man that he shall lie. And maybe some of you are saying, yeah, but in the Old Testament of the Bible, Noah had to wait and he was told that he was crazy when God told him it's going to rain. This is not the Old Testament. Shocker, it's the New Testament and Jesus has done it. Everything has been fulfilled. So stop the excuses now.
It's true. When Jesus said on the cross it is finished, he meant every single word that he said. Everything already exists. It either exists in the visible realm or the unseen realm. That is why you need to transcend time and you need to actually operate from that realm from now on. Because if you continue to think that you need to wait and there's such a thing as delay, you're going to be continuously stuck in a reality that you hate. And I want you to think about this practically. You might need to watch other videos and do your own research and actually ponder and spend time about this topic that we're speaking about, because the reality is that it is true. There is actually no such thing as time. And if you don't get out of that mindset, you're going to be stuck. But I want to also bring this idea to you and realization that there are parallel universes. There are literally different versions of us that are existing right here, right now, operating right here and right now. So if that is the case, and this is actually a great thing for you to realize, because it means that whatever you like, whatever you desire, you can be it right now. You can live in that state right now. But it also goes the other way. Whatever you don't like, whatever you hate, whatever you don't want to become, it is also there. That is why it's up to you to take responsibility and actually live in this information that you're receiving. Live it out.
And now you're probably thinking, how do I actually do that in my everyday life? I also struggled with this. We didn't wake up one morning knowing, there's no time. So now everything changes. Things are just gonna keep happening in my life. It doesn't necessarily work like that, because also us having been programmed the way we have been programmed, it would take a lot of studying and actually implementing these steps that we're about to share with you. So this is an example that I have done in the past week or so, that I actually started seeing a lot of results in today, recording this video. This is what happened last week. Last week I was experiencing story after story being repeated in different ways from someone who I actually care about. And I just started thinking about how this is so sad that we ourselves can become so consumed in a reality that we have created in our mind that is obviously not necessarily the truth, because we are our own universe. We have our own lives. God blesses us in different ways, right? So I'm hearing this person speak and they're sharing what's been bothering them. And to give you just a bit of it without giving this person's personal story away completely, but they are in love with a man. This man does not necessarily know that they have been desiring to have a relationship with them over all these years, being 5 years that they haven't been together. Although she believes that she's been hearing from God, and I have no scrutiny whatsoever, because again, it comes down to what you believe.
Yeah.
So of course, what she believes, she'll obviously start creating a universe based off that. Now, to say that she's right or wrong is entirely up to her. But me hearing the story over and over again, I'm honestly just hearing someone who has chosen to stick in this lifestyle so that their lives keep going around this person. And time is going by, because every time they choose to, or every time I've heard that they get faced with the reality that this might not happen, they resort to, it must not be God's timing yet, because I know what I heard. And when you have a person like that, and especially centered around relationships, I don't advise you go and tell them this is not the person or this is the person for you, because it has honestly nothing to do with you. But having that fixation on making somebody else their idol, their God, is truly dangerous. But then again, the contrast of that can be amazing. Imagine this person was in fact in love with them, and they themselves were focused on something together, and they kept knowing that now is the time. So they kept expecting it to happen right now. Whatever it may be. Maybe they might have been visualizing a home or a trip, whatever. That's how much power you hold. It can happen in an instant. So I switched from seeing this person as nagging and draining my energy to something that I can definitely learn from and know what not to do. And after I decided I'm not going to be a victim of, hearing redundant stories, but not having people in my life who I feel are also growing, but instead are stuck in the past of a past relationship that might not even take place. Honestly, that's the truth. That's the reality. It helps you to switch your mindset into seeing that so much time has been wasted. Let's actually live in the now. And by living in the now, I was able to put in different steps of what I actually would like in my life, what I would like in our business. And I've started to see synchronicities in line with what I desire. It's not necessarily confirmation from God. Because if I was again fixated on somebody, and I will still see synchronicities, it doesn't necessarily mean it's God or it's now the perfect timing. You choose when the perfect timing is. That's the point of the story.
It's so true, because even I catch myself today. I was even thinking about it, where I was thinking, I didn't need to do this and this, or let me do this and this, but I'm not ready. And then I caught myself and I'm like, there's never, and like,
you're not ready. You'll always be ready.
I caught myself and I was like, it's not a matter of whether you're ready or not, because at the end of the day, now is the time. You just got to do it now, because saying that, okay, maybe wait for tomorrow, then I'll be ready, you're not even guaranteed tomorrow.
You know what? Even that opportunity that came to you, if you were not ready, meant you were ready.
Exactly.
Because waiting then tomorrow, the opportunity can be gone.
That's why I see the power of doing and living in the now, because at the end of the day, that is actually all we have. If you think about it practically, even what you did yesterday, what were you doing it in? You were in the now moment. We are always going to be living in the now moment. That is why it's important to change your whole perspective and actually just function from there. And then you will see your 3D reality will start to reflect actually the desires that you want.
That's why people who stay stuck in cycles, they are creating these cycles, because cycles are periods of time, essentially. So of course, if we're going to keep having the same mindset, the same outlook in life, the same fixations, goals, etc., you are going to continue living in that cycle. It actually makes so much sense.
It does, because even the whole thing of a cycle, it goes like this, correct? And physicists have basically established that time isn't linear. It's not like this. It's not past, present, now. Time is actually circular, because everything is happening at once. Everything is happening now. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, it will always go back to your state of being. It will always go back to your frequency. Because even in day-to-day life, haven't you noticed that before you've even spoken to someone, you can already feel their energy? That is because your frequency speaks before you've even spoken. And the universe doesn't care necessarily about what you say, because at the end of the day, it's about energy, okay? It cares about what you feel. That is why what you think will always also be directly connected to how you feel. That is why it's important to grab a hold of those two and actually make sure that you're thinking the way your desired person and the reality that they live in is thinking and being. And then that is how it'll show up in your 3D reality. Because I want to emphasize this. If you can see it, you can have it. Don't listen to people trying to tell you that you can't have this, you can't do that, you can't live like this. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. And your imagination is actually one of the powerful tools that you have in your possession. Use it. Flippin' use it.
So essentially, if you're seeing cycles in your life, how do you break out of that cycle? You start being the person instead that you'd like to be. And that means actually saying no to what is not aligning in your present moment of you being your ideally would have been future self. Because we're not about future self there, we're about now. This is, for example, people who used to be around you. You can start giving them limited access to you. If someone is saying, yeah, I would like to go and do this, sure, let them go. You don't have to accompany them. You don't have to say, but it's kind of rude. You can just say, you know what? That does not actually align with me anymore. Why don't we do this instead? If you actually enjoy their company and you consider them a friend, it doesn't mean you have to cut them out cold turkey out of your life. But again, you'll start noticing that if they don't agree, it means they're not supposed to be with you going forward in life. Everything has a time span. As long as you keep allowing it in your life, it's just going to continue growing roots. And the more it grows roots, the harder it is to uproot. So take your life as something that's a precious possession. You are golden. You have so much to offer in this world that settling for a mediocre person in your life because you don't know if you'll make friends, because you're not necessarily a social person, is actually bringing you down. The universe doesn't necessarily give you what you desire. It gives you what you are attracting on that frequency level.
Yeah, what you feel is your worth.
Yeah, so if you think you're attracting trash men or trash women, it's because you inside don't have a good relationship with yourself. You don't love yourself. Check how you speak to yourself. Are you being rude? Are you telling yourself, oh, you're so stupid, I can't believe you made this mistake internally? Then that's why you attract maybe toxic people. Or maybe because you don't see yourself of value, that's why you attract low-life people. And I know that sounds very cold, but I've gotten to this point where I don't care. I don't care, because honestly, some YouTubers who are just being too nice aren't necessarily helping you or I. This is the reality. If you're tired of your life, change it. Do it for the reinvention.
Yeah. But this is exciting now that you know that time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You actually have now no limitations. Literally, it's so... Once I really understood this, my goodness. I was like, whoa, I feel invincible. I'm unstoppable. I am a push with... Yeah.
Okay,
so now that you know this information, go and live your life. Go and live your best life.